Welcome to Football Inc., the podcast where the world of football collides with the world of business. My name is Raymond Ndjonok-Tonye, aka Coach Ray. I'm a coach, entrepreneur, former Division One NCAA football player, and my guest today is actually it's a friend, it's a fellow coach, it's someone who loves football, who does a great deal here in the province of Quebec, and just helping develop the position of quarterback to contribute to this game that we love. Family man, I'm looking forward to introduce you guys to him and his story and what he's all about. Today we got Myles Gibbons. What's up, Myles? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I've been watching the clips, man. You're doing some good stuff, so I'm glad that you invited me on here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here, and I'll just start from the beginning, the way I always do. Just how's life right now? As the family, how's 2024 treating you so far?
Well, like I was saying before, man, busy. We're in the height of the off season right now, so guys are working really hard. It's winter outside, but we're still training pretty much every single day. So the guys are putting in the work. Family's good. My little one, 2.5 years old, so she's thriving, jumping off everything and being a little daredevil. But yeah, man, she's doing great. Family's good, business is good, man. Life is good. Can't complain.
Before we get into just your story, all the football stuff, as I was doing some research, I fell upon something that I want to share with you real quick. On
Okay.
your personal bio at the University of South Alabama,
Uh-oh.
back when you were there,
Okay.
you wrote at the end, and I'll read it right now. Hey, in the future, I would love to coach. So you kind of spoke that into existence, man. This is something you had on your heart for a while. So if we just go back to that moment, man, did you ever believe that what you do right now for a living, it would look the way it does at this point?
I mean, I think back then I didn't know in what way it would take form. I think I knew I always wanted to coach. Like even when I was playing at Vanier, like I was helping with the Montreal Blitz, like the women's team. We went to the championship, we won. Like I've always loved coaching. I've always loved, watching people develop in something they're passionate about. So I always knew I was going to coach. And I tell my guys all the time, like I knew from a long time that I was a better coach than I was a player. So even though, I did have successes, I did well, like I'm very happy with my career, I still think I'm a better coach than I am a player. So it was something that I always knew I wanted to do. And I think it was instilled a little bit with my dad because my dad, he coached football growing up his entire life. He wasn't the most athletic guy in the world, but he's a really good coach. So I think he kind of put some of his wisdom on me in terms of the coaching, and I just fell in love with it. So I always knew I was going to coach. I didn't know to what capacity. I don't think I ever would have thought it would have got to this point and what we're doing here back then. But you go with the flow and things kind of take shape.
Football is definitely a family affair, as you just talked about when it
Yeah.
comes to your family. I know your mom is all in. She's been all in, for a
Oh yeah.
very long time. You spent a lot of time with your father. How is it with your daughter? What's the relationship with football? I know she's around, or what is it like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to instill it into her. She loves watching football with me. She knows I love it. I'm not trying to push her into it, but and I mean she's enjoying it. I'm teaching her, what terminology means. She's 2.5, understanding what like a post route is and what a check down is, and what a handoff and touchdown. She loves running around yelling touchdown when guys score. So she's getting involved. But I mean, as a parent, and I mean, this, right? You can't just project the things you want on these kids, right? So you got to make sure that they're trying everything. So she does swimming, she does gymnastics, she does soccer. Um, hopefully she's going to learn how to play golf, so me and her can get better at that together. But no, we're slowly putting it on there, and I mean, you've seen it in the province of Quebec. I mean, Canada in general, flag football from a women's standpoint has exploded, right? So hopefully, maybe one day she wants to play a little bit of flag football, and who knows, maybe go to the Olympics one day. So we'll see.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And if we go from the beginning, okay, as you talked about before, your father coach, but uh, football aside, did you play any other sports growing up? What was it like at first, man? Who was young Mouse? What type of energy did he have? What did he want to do?
Soccer. Yeah, I definitely started with soccer. I'd say I was pretty good. I was pretty good. Had fun playing soccer. Played all the positions. Never to a super serious level, but same thing there. My dad was the coach. You know, he participated. He tried to get me into hockey. I still to this day can't skate, so I was never a hockey player. Um, More on the extreme side, you know, I grew up skateboarding, riding BMXs, you know, little daredevil stuff, you know, jumping off stuff. Like I was always kind of doing something. But in terms of just normal sports, you know, I was really just dialed into football. You know, I did a little bit of track and field here and there. Um, but, you know, I wish I maybe did play a few more sports growing up because we see how it translates so well across sports. But no, once I hit, say, about 9 years old, man, I was just locked in football day in and day out.
And what was your first football memory? Where did it all start for you?
I just remember my dad. My dad was a Bears fan. He was watching the Packers versus the Bears, so obviously I went and became a Packers
Mm.
fan because I wanted to kind of compete with them. And he asked me if I want to play, and I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So he brought me to a practice, and I just remember doing. They don't do it too often now, but the hamburger drill. You know, laying on your
Yeah.
back, and I got destroyed by the biggest kid on the team. Like I got absolutely run over. I was crying. And my dad came over up to me and he's just like, yo, like, do you sure you want to do this? And apparently I looked at him and I said, yep. And so I got up and just kept practicing. So that's definitely the first iconic memory. Started out as a receiver, and then by the age of, I think, yeah, 8 or 9 years old, I became a quarterback, and it was like that ever since.
All right. And you talked about the Green Bay Packers, for sure. So you're most likely a Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers or both, you
I
know.
started
And
with
wow,
Favre. Started with Favre.
yeah,
You know, we're blessed, right, in terms of, you know, from my perspective, you know, how Brett Favre played the game of quarterback. You know, classic
yeah,
gunslinger. You know, very non-conformative of, you know, classic quarterback fundamentals. He could literally sling it from any which
mm,
way. So he was a huge example when I was getting into the coaching side. And then obviously Aaron Rodgers to me is probably the best thrower of a football to ever play.
mm,
Not necessarily the best quarterback, but the best
mm,
thrower of a football, I think, to ever play the game. So I definitely take a lot of inspiration from him and what he does. And now, man, Jordan Love, he's looking pretty good. So I think
very
Green Bay's in
nice.
good hands again. So they've been lucky, and it's all about development, man. And this is what I tell guys all
Yeah,
the time. Like you look at a Brett Favre, you know, Aaron Rodgers, regardless of what the relationship was, like he sat behind a pro for a couple years and learned the ropes and learned how to do it. And now the same thing with Jordan Love. So sometimes, you know, we get so jaded on, like, you know, being a first year starter or a guy getting
yeah,
drafted, you know, like Caleb Williams. Now, like sometimes you got to just let these guys develop. And it's the same thing here, right? Like, you know, kids saying, "Oh, what school should I go to here and there?" And I'm like, "Go where you're going to develop." You know, starting your first year might not be the best way to do it, but learning and developing under someone who might be pretty good might be pretty helpful. But I mean, I'm sure we'll get into some of that stuff. But yeah,
for sure. Because it's a testament in some parts to your story. Also, same thing to mine. And if we talk about development, just in general, I know it's something you believe in a lot. If I'm not mistaken, your football journey started more in Laval. You transitioned and grew up more in like the North Shore system.
yep,
Uh, if you could tell us about just let's say those North Shore days, you know,
yep,
it's a staple here in Montreal. Lions,
yeah.
Mustangs, all of that. What's your number? Obviously, there's many takeaways, you know, that you can take from these years. What was the main takeaway? Let's say at the bantam level, where you really hit your stride, gain your confidence, and started to be like, okay, maybe I can do this at a different level.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was so I'm born and raised in Laval, so I played Chamonix Blues as a kid, and then it was that competition level. My dad wanted to put me around the best, and at that time it was North Shore Lions. That's who it was. I mean, you were there, you were a year ahead of me. We never got to play together, but you were a year ahead of me. I got to play with your brother, who was an absolute monster. Um, but going out there, it was the next level of competition. So the guys I was around were just a lot better. There's a little bit more adversity. The people we were playing against were a little bit more serious. The coaches were a little bit more kind of locked in. So it kind of it shaped the idea of, you know, how competitive the game can get.
Yeah,
It was a winning program, and, you know, winning, if you didn't win it, you just, something went wrong. So you know, over those years from Lions to Mustang, we won pretty much every year. We won 3 out of the 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And it kind of just shaped the idea of, okay, like if you want to be great, you got to put the time into it. Because, you know, back then we were practicing every single night. Now, okay, kids
yeah,
are lucky these days. They're practicing 2, 3 times a week. a lot of these kids are in school, so they go right out from finishing school. They're on the field, they're training. Like for me, it was, finish school at 4, do homework for an hour. My dad would pick me up, do an hour in traffic to go to the North Shore, train at 6, get home 9 o'clock, homework, back to bed. Like I was already kind of on that like university routine from a young age. So it put in, if you want to take it seriously, these are the things you have to do. So I definitely think it benefited me. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's probably why I didn't get the opportunity to play a lot of other sports because the time crunch
Yeah.
was nuts. Yeah.
Do you think, because obviously, man, just your journey and the way you explain it, things evolve over time for sure. Having played the game at the collegiate level, you know that it gets to that at some point, regardless.
Yep.
Now, maybe it's a little bit different. What would you say? Maybe it's an advantage to the way the approach is right now, and maybe have we gained something? Have we lost something? I believe in cycles,
hmm
regardless, man. We love this game. We're trying to refine it all the time. What do you love about today's approach, and how it helps players develop?
I mean, I think coaching is on the rise. I think a lot of our youth coaches are getting better and better. There's a lot more outlets for them to learn. Since I've started coaching quarterbacks, the amount of interactions I've had with coaches from teams or organizations has gone through the roof because they see not only the benefit of their guys learning from other people, but they also see the benefit of understanding themselves that they can kind of then project onto their kids. So everybody's on the same page. The only thing worse for a kid is have two voices in his head, right? Tell him to do something, and then he's trying to do something else. So I feel like there's been a lot more connection through the coaching network, which has been awesome. Uh, Obviously with the explosion of SPOITs in school, I think it's giving kids way more opportunities to specialize in their sport. Not to say that playing for your city is a bad thing. The city programs are still doing really really good things, but having kids being kind of enveloped in football all day and giving them opportunities to really just focus on football throughout the day. I think kids are getting better. Like we I mean, we talk about all the time saying, like our day, our team was better than the kids these days. Man, the kids are good now. Like the kids are really good now. So I think football, it hit a little slump for a little bit, but now it's back on the rise, and the kids are getting better. The coaches are getting better. The programs are getting better. Schools are now putting little turfs inside their schools. I'm seeing guys with brand new uniforms on a regular basis. The kids are smiling. There's more respect towards the game, and I think that's really helping us. Obviously there's always going to be negatives with it. I think it's also encouraged the saturation of
Yeah.
certain things in terms of training and recruiting, all that stuff. There's also a lot of negatives that have kind of been put into the sport as well. But I mean, overall, like we're on a good trend, so I'm happy where it's at.
Really cool. So from North Shore again, you come from Chamonix Blues, you go to North Shore Mustangs. If you could tell us maybe about like your greatest memory there, in your before you hit that CJEP level, if there's something that really sticks out for you.
I think from the Mustang level, like those are really fun times. I met a lot of good friends that I'm still talking to today. It's just I think the Mustang level is where it started clicking that I was actually kind of good at football. Growing
Mm,
up, like you're playing the sport, you're having fun, you're running around, doing all this crazy stuff. But in Mustangs was kind of where, you're 15, 16, going on 17
mm,
at that point where, I was still doing a lot of those other things, like skateboarding and BMXing and just hanging around with my
yeah.
friends. But then I also had coaches starting to come up to me and be like, man, that was crazy. Like the stuff you did in that game
Mm,
was insane. And the respect from like the teammates saying like, we couldn't do some of this stuff without you. It was just like it started to click in. And I think that's what really kind of got me on path of saying like, okay, well, like maybe I can do something with this. I still had no idea where it was going to take me, but at that point, it was just like, okay, like I think I'm actually pretty good at this sport. Like, let's see what we can do with it. So it was kind of like the little kick in the ass. I think that I needed to put me on the right path of saying like, this is what you're going to do. Let's lock into it.
mm. And from the Mustangs, you go to Vanier.
Yep.
Was there any other school in the picture? Obviously, that was a time where there was a nice lineage, let's say, a nice
Yeah.
tradition of
Yeah.
North Shore to Vanier quarterbacks who had a lot of success from like
Yeah.
Marco Brouillet to Liam Mahoney to it was like really the pipeline.
Yep.
Was it a done deal from the get go? And why Vanier ultimately?
Yeah, pretty much. It was almost like there wasn't really another option. Obviously, one, I was going to school in English, so the opportunity to play football at an English CJEP was pretty scarce at that time. And yeah, the lineage was there. Like the three quarterbacks before me, all the way up to Jabari Arthur,
Ah,
was
Jabari too.
going. Yeah,
Jabari, yeah.
was going there, and then even the quarterbacks after me kept going there. It was really a pipeline.
Mm,
Obviously, Vanya at that point too it was very successful. They were doing really good
mm,
things, and it wasn't too far from my house. So all the roads led to Vanier. I don't think there was ever a doubt in my mind or an option other than Vanier to go to. And
mm.
luckily enough, it worked out, and we did some good things over there.
Okay. I'm curious to know because the quarterback position is a very specific position. Let's say it's a different type of position. In your opinion, what does it mean? What does it entail to play quarterback? And I know that's a deep question, right? You could probably
Yeah,
talk about that for days.
yeah,
But what does it entail to be a good quarterback? And when did that really click for you? Like you talked about it, as a North Shore Mustang, you started to realize that you were kind of good at this. But being good at this and being a true quarterback, taking full ownership of what that is, maybe that's two different things. Where
yeah.
did that start to align for you?
For me, I mean, like, yeah, the quarterback position, it's something special, right? And I think why they're paid the big money, why there's so much emphasis put on the quarterback position is because we do things that no other position does, right? Not even in terms of, obviously we throw the football, but in terms of our movement patterns, right? The mental process that goes before each play, the preparation process that goes before each play, right? The leadership, the anticipation roles, all that stuff. There's no other position. I don't even think in sports that compares to playing quarterback. And I tell kids that all the time. There is not a harder position in any sport other than quarterback, right? It's
Mm,
like a goalie in hockey. Your skill set is completely different from everybody else, and that's why
mm,
our even our physical stature, our type is very different, right? Like most quarterbacks are closer to kickers than they are linebackers, right? So we are a
yeah,
very different person when it comes onto the field, and it's all those small details that really separate guys again who are good at throwing footballs and guys
mm,
who are good quarterbacks, and that's where I think the whole industry of private coaching and private training, especially in the States, like it started with quarterbacks because we are so different. We can't do the same track and field training that linebackers, running backs, receivers, all these kind of guys. We can definitely do it and get better, but there are so many different movements in terms of lateral movement, in terms of hip rotation and how we kind of control our upper half, that is so different than other positions that you have to specialize in it, or else you
yeah,
might get left behind. And there's some guys who break the mold 100%. There's guys who never trained a day in their life,
mm,
specifically, and they're still really, really good quarterbacks, right? Some guys are just talented, but in the grand
yeah.
scheme of things, we're just different. We're just different athletes. So we got to do a lot of different things to kind of make sure that we're on top.
Okay, cool. And with you, we're kind of following the football journey. So at Vanier, you had quite a lot of success. You won a couple ones. I still have some bad memories. I'm
Yeah,
not
sorry.
forgetting some of these moments. You lost
Yeah,
too. You lost too, by the
we
way,
did.
right? So
We did.
it's both, man. If you could just tell us about like your journey at Vanier, and obviously you transitioned from Vanier to the NCAA. When did that start to even become an idea for you?
Hmm.
Or was it always an idea from the beginning? It was just a matter of time to kind of ramp it up and really go after that dream.
It was never even a thought. When I got to Vanier, the NCAA, it wasn't even on the radar. One, obviously, social media didn't exist, right? There was nothing like that, so you couldn't see what other guys are doing. You couldn't see what it was really just word of mouth and whatever. So no, NCAA was never even a thought going into CJEP. First year, obviously, I was the backup. We won a bowl door. I played backup. Second year was my kind of the blowout year. Broke all the records. Won a bowl door. We went undefeated. It was a great season. That was the unfortunate season for you guys on the other
Yeah.
side. Um, and then after that season is when Canadian universities really started showing interest. So I was
Mhm,
like, oh wow, like I'm already starting to get recruited and I still have another year.
mhm,
And then that summer was when my dad, myself, we had some people we knew were just like, you need to start doing some of these camps down south. So I did go. I went to the Elite 11 regional at Penn State.
Mm,
Did really well there. Was put into the final grouping of all the quarterbacks there, whatever that means. But I got a lot of good PR from there,
yeah.
which then got me invited to the Under Armour showcase, which was in Baltimore. Um,
Mm,
a lot of good PR there too. Um, and at that time, like it wasn't so like common, right? Like we didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So it
yeah.
was like, it wasn't like I was flying out and staying up in hotels. Like it was literally, my dad was like, okay, well, we're leaving this weekend. We're going to go do a
Mhm.
bunch of camps. So we're like literally driving in a car from Pennsylvania, then out to Baltimore. And then we were just kind of
Wow.
going around, like staying in like little motels, like nothing crazy, trying to figure out also what it all meant. There was no
Mm,
real guidance. Like there was no, recruiters out here. There was no people to help me along the way. It was just me and my dad kind of figuring it out as we go. So met a lot of good coaches. Then finished with a camp out in Toronto, actually. So the last camp I ended up doing was in Toronto, and then the offensive coordinator for the University of South Alabama was there. He took a liking, and then from there it was just an official visit. They offered me on the spot. Couldn't say no. Signed the papers. I had a couple of um, other offers on the table, but none of them were as concrete. So when they gave me that offer, I couldn't pass it up. So I signed on the spot, and that day I became a Jaguar.
wow. Really cool, Miles, and it'll help me transition later on to the post football journey. But I find there's a lot to take away just from your journey. The number one thing is just taking ownership of your journey, no
Yeah.
matter what that is. Sometimes you don't even really know exactly how you're gonna do something,
Hmm.
but I find like the first step is just taking ownership and taking action.
Yep.
Taking action, which is what you did. And the cool part about that is that you don't need no one's permission for that. Once you kind of put your mindset into it, man, you decide and you go. Another thing I find is cool just being at an environment like Vanya is that like sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but just through sheer exposure, just by looking around you and seeing people who are at a certain level, who are talking certain things, who are doing certain things, it starts to become real just because you're kind of exposed to it, right? So
Yeah.
I find, man, it's so important, as you said, just to surround ourselves with the right people, whether it's a coach, whether it's the right peers, to kind of elevate us. Because once we elevate, man, we get to see what's out there that we might have never seen before, and then it opens new doors for you for sure. So
Definitely.
you're a Montreal kid, obviously end up in South Alabama, right? South
Yeah.
Alabama, great opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
It's different football, it's different culture. I've been in Mississippi, man, so I get it a little bit, man. Tell us about just your first moments in the South. What was the main difference? Was it what you expected? At first, was it just, hey, I'm about to get on campus, do my thing, or hey, there's a process to this. It's a little bit different, maybe.
Yeah.
How was it for you?
I mean, like it was a culture change, right? Like when I went on my visit to South Alabama, I think I was like 165 pounds soaking wet. Like I was a twig. And I tell my guys now, like I was a twig, and they put me on their training program. They gave me the books, all the information. They gave me, the supplements, everything I
Mm,
needed to take. And I went up 35 pounds in like 4 months
yeah.
of muscle. And then so when I got to campus, I was like already like 200 pounds now. Um,
Mm,
and the first day I got there, we had morning runs. So I got there,
yeah.
one day, the following morning, 7 a.m., we had morning runs like with the team, like at 5 a.m., throwing
Mm,
kegs on the field, doing all this crazy stuff. And I was just like, holy like this is
yeah.
crazy. I was like, it's kind of cool. Okay. And I got into it,
Yeah.
and then realizing that that was like an everyday thing. It wasn't just like we're
Mm,
doing. So it was kind of that commitment of time. Like it really was a shock. Obviously, the campus was something I'd never seen before. Is just
yeah.
like, with the facilities and stuff. It was just something, you're not used to.
Mm,
The heat, that was something special. The Alabama heat is no joke. But no, it was definitely a culture shock. I'd gone from, even as a little kid, through Lions, through Mustangs, to Vanier, like I was a certified starter. I was the
mm,
guy. I knew I had to wait my turn, but I knew when it was my turn, that was it. It was my team. That was it.
yeah.
So when I got there, I remember looking, peeking into the coach's office and realizing like, oh shit, there's 7 other quarterbacks on this team, and I'm
Yeah.
last on the depth chart. I was last. I
Yeah.
was dead last at the bottom of the depth chart. Always being called the Canadian guy. Didn't have the
Hmm.
same pedigree as some of these kids. So no, I just had to put my head down, get to the grind. They're bringing in transfers, so all everybody was talking about all these other guys, and put my head down. And by the end of spring camp, ended up number one on the depth chart. Started going up, 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 and then got the start as a freshman. Uh, was a blast, man. Was a really good team, and uh, yeah, it's good memories. It's good memories, but it was a fight, and it was definitely a culture shock that we had to deal with. But it was definitely well worth it.
Wow. And I'm curious to know if it was like that for you guys too. But back when I was in Mississippi and we were running under that heat, we had those huge vultures just flying over the practice field. Yeah,
We
just
didn't. I
flying
don't know
over the
about no.
practice field. I guess they thought someone had to die pretty soon. They were ready,
Someone's
you
gonna
know.
pass
So
out.
just running those sprints and seeing those vultures, man, I have some flashbacks from that. I don't know if it was
Man,
like that
I
in
know the
Alabama.
vultures. Me, it's the shoes, man. Like after practice, my shoes would be boats, man, just
Yeah.
soaked. Like I'd go through a new pair. There's a good thing about being at an American university is I would go through like a pair of cleats almost a week on
Wow.
practice because they would just soak up and then they'd get too heavy. So man, the sweat. I've never sweat like that in my life, but hey, it's part
Wow.
of the game. Part of the game.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
definitely went through a great deal of adversity when you got there, just
Yep.
understanding whatever you want, you have to fight for it, especially it's not given. And even though there was a plan for you and they brought you there, you still show up there. You're number 7 on the depth chart, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a climb up. If you could tell us about maybe one takeaway that you keep from that you kind of carried over to everything else after, whether it's football, life, whatever, man. Just from that time and from learning how to fight and how to kind of get what you want. What's one
Yeah.
takeaway maybe that you keep with you?
100% consistency is key, man. Consistency, right? You can do something really good one time and you can also mess up really bad. Consistency is key, right? Doing the right things over and over and over is definitely the way to do it. I do that in terms of, how we coach and how we train. It's rare, like, guys don't train with me one time, right? And I also don't evaluate someone off of one session, right? The guys who work with us, we train every single week. It never stops. So consistency is where we get better. I've had coaches be like, yeah, I don't think this kid's really going to cut it. I'm like, well, let him be consistent for a little bit. Let him keep working. And then all of a sudden, now these guys are U sport starting quarterbacks, right? So it's consistency. So it doesn't matter. Even with us, like I don't care if you're the worst kid I've seen the first time you come out and throw. You could be the best kid. It's going to be what you do over time. That's really going to kind
Yeah,
of showcase who you are. And that's honestly why I love coaches so much is because that
yeah,
development of being with a kid, now I've been doing it long enough, we're almost on year 8 or 9 now, where,
yeah,
8 years ago I had kids who started with me when they were 12 that are 20
yeah,
now starting quarterbacks in U Sport. And it's just like, wow, okay, like this
yeah.
this is
It's
awesome.
crazy.
Like you see the development. So yeah, it's consistency in anything, right? Consistency in life. Uh, you know, good things come to those with patience, who know how to wait, who know how to go with the flow. Too many people are trying to look for that quick hit, right? Like, let
Mm,
this blow up now. Let me do this now. Where take your time, learn the ropes, learn
yeah.
how it goes, and eventually you'll get yours. So definitely consistency, man.
Other than that, that's definitely a great thing for athletes to learn. Okay. I'd like to piggy off of that. Um, what's one thing in your opinion that maybe athletes don't know that they don't know, at this point,
Okay.
especially the guys looking to go to the next level? There's always that saying, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So, what is it that they don't know that the quicker that they figure out and take ownership of and absorb, the better it is for them, in your opinion? You talked about
Uh,
consistency. Is there
yeah.
something else in your opinion?
I'd say it's the understanding that there's a lot of ways to do the same thing. Right. So whether it's coaching changes, culture changes, we're all going towards the same thing, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. Right. So like in the way one coach might teach you how to read a certain play concept, another coach might teach you completely different. Same thing when it comes to throwing mechanics, right? Where that's our specialty is the way we train it might have different terminology, different ways of getting from point A to point B. Some other guy might train the exact same thing, but use different ways of showcasing it, right? Might emphasize different parts of the body as opposed to the way we do it. Doesn't mean one's better than the other. It's about understanding that there's a lot of ways to accomplish the same goal. So if you can learn that and not get don't get locked in your own mechanics or your own mindset, and also be open to understanding that other people can offer you good insight, that's where you're going to grow, right? So
Yeah.
like in terms for me, like kids who want to say, hey, coach, there's a camp out in Florida, like I want to go to a camp, like is that cool? I'm like, yeah, you get your ass out there. Like the more you learn, the more you put into your brain, the more you're going to be able to understand the full picture. So the
Mm,
idea of like, well, I don't want to, my coach didn't tell me to do it this way. Well, okay, that's fine, but you can do it this other way. And that's where kids
mm,
got to kind of expand their brain a little bit to not get locked in. The same thing goes in nutrition. The same thing goes in strength training. The same thing goes in your mental training. There's so many different ways to accomplish the same goals. Don't get locked into just one mindset, because then all of a sudden, that next coach you might meet, your next OC, your next head coach might think a different way. And if you're stuck in that same path and you were too stubborn to budge, well, now you gotta do a full breakdown, a full reset to then try and get acclimated
wow.
to what he's showing, right? So definitely open mindset when it comes to learning. Um, it's a skill that we can all benefit from. And I think a lot of coaches in the city, a lot of private trainers, a lot of private coaches, I think still struggle with that concept of
Mm,
understanding that there's different ways to do stuff. And
mm,
that old school mentality of my way or the highway, that shit doesn't work anymore. Like you got to be
wow.
willing to open your brain and understand. And coaches can learn that stuff too. It's not just the players, right? So coaches got to learn how to open up and adapt their mindset to understand that kids are training different these days. Kids are learning different these days. They're watching more content, right? Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
YouTube. Like, man, you can go on YouTube and learn more about coverages in 20 minutes. And some OCs have even the time to try and
Mm,
teach you over a whole season, right? So these kids are getting smarter, they're getting better, they're getting more efficient, right? So we all have to
yeah.
level up, or else we're all just kind of holding ourselves down at like a certain level. So yeah, open up the brain, man. Accept all different forms of knowledge, and then it's up to you to decide which one's best for you.
That's really cool. And what I take away from this as I listen to you talk is just the importance of being yourself. Number one, as a player, but as a coach, as you said, man, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? In the
Yep.
end, we're all different. We're all unique. I truly believe that as much as you open up yourself and you be a constant learner, right? But you stay yourself, right? You
Yep.
stay within your own area of greatness, man. That's when you can be great. You're not trying to be somebody else. You're kind of adapting all these things and bringing them to who you are. And I think, man, within this game and beyond this game is something that's so important because we all lived it, man. We all saw it. Sometimes you're in a situation where it's very like this, you're gonna do
Yep.
this and you're
Yep.
gonna be this, but man, this kid may have this skill set and that
Yep.
skill set, and we could use him that way and that way. So man, I think we all can learn from this to keep
find
growing the game for
find the
sure.
balance, man. There's a balance in everything, right? In some instances, you need that drill sergeant, you need that
Yeah,
that conformity 100%. Not saying that that shouldn't be part of the game. That's what keeps a lot of players in line. It keeps a lot of team goals and standards in line 1000%. But when it comes to your own personal brain and how you evaluate things and how you analyze things, you got to be ready to accept different viewpoints and different ideas, because it's the only way you grow. But yeah, definitely.
for sure. One thing that I liked about how you approach the game, and that's one thing I keep telling athletes all the time, is that you obviously started your journey at the college level in the NCAA, at South Alabama. You finished at York University, right?
Yeah.
But the reason for that, and don't hesitate to piggyback off or kind of give your opinion. What I like about that is that you came into York as a grad student, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So you came into York as a grad student. What did you study at South Alabama, out of curiosity?
So when I was in South Alabama, I got a bachelor's in psychology. I started my first 2 years. Unfortunately, towards the end of my second year, I tore my PCL. Game 2 or game 3. And so I tell kids all the time, man, you're down south. There's good dudes playing football. So especially as a quarterback, there's only one on the field. So if you get hurt, something happens, you make too many mistakes, someone's just waiting to sink their teeth into that position. So after I got hurt, we had a really good room of quarterbacks. One
Mm,
guy ended up stepping up. He took the job over. The following
mm,
year, they even brought in Brandon Bridge, who had a pretty good CFL
yeah.
career moving forward. So basically, I lost a spot, and it happens in football. Fortunate enough for me, I was able to graduate within 3 years, which is really cool. I was able to take some extra classes. I graduated in 3 years, transferred to York as a grad student. When I got
Mm,
to York, I did my master's degree in kinesiology. So I did a master's thesis, and I looked at how we predict future talent in quarterbacks. So looking at
mm,
collegiate stats, looking at how they correlate to success in the NFL. I was getting ready towards the end of uh, my career at York. So I played 2 years. I was getting ready for the CFL Combine. So alongside that, in my thesis, I looked at how the Combine statistics kind of correlate to success in the NFL. Um, Basically debunking how the Combine is just a bunch of hot garbage for quarterbacks. Um, you know, Basically implying that we need better testing for quarterbacks, and I think it's
yeah.
pretty evident. Like, we said at the beginning, right? We're all about anticipation, decision making, problem solving, right? How quick can we act on the fly and control a
Yeah.
situation? So we need to find more testing to evaluate quarterbacks on that line. That's a whole different story. But yeah, so
Mm,
got into York as a grad student, finished with a master's in kinesiology, specializing in quarterbacks, and then yeah, didn't get drafted, and then decided to start coaching.
okay. Really cool. And
Yeah,
by the way, Brandon Bridge was at Alcorn State with
yeah,
me and my
yeah,
brother. So
yeah.
it's a
Small world.
small world, man. It's a small world. How
Yeah, he's a good
everything's
dude.
connected. Football is such a small world, man. So,
Yeah,
but anyways, man, I just wanted to point out how just understanding what this game is really about. Obviously, everyone that plays this game is because they love football. But once you reach a certain level, if you do have the ability and the opportunities to have your school paid for to get opportunities, hey, see it as such, right? So I think it's really cool that, man, you took the summer classes. You did the extra because one way or another, man, whether you get hurt, whether you don't, you win at football. But man, you come out with that degree, and once you transfer, you're a graduate transfer. You still got years of eligibility, man. So I think this is just a great way for any athletes listening or anybody else, man, how to maximize on the opportunities that you have for sure. So obviously, man, you love the quarterback position. You go into like more the science route, kinesiology. You always dream probably of playing football at the professional level.
for
As
sure.
you said, man, it didn't happen exactly that way, but something else maybe ignited that was in you from the beginning. As I said when I started this podcast, is that you had this dream of becoming a coach, right?
Yep.
It was in you, and then this idea started to materialize. What did it look like at first? What was your initial idea? Was it I'm coaching a team? Was it obviously you're interested in growing the quarterback position? How do you do that? Uh, how did it all started, man?
Yeah. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I always knew I was going to be a good coach, so I just didn't know in what capacity. So when I finished my masters, then I didn't get drafted. All of a sudden, everything shrinks, right? Like, okay, well, what do I do now? So I knew coaching was the route for me. Initially, I thought, yeah, let me try and become like a coach at a high school, maybe take over a program, maybe work my way up, youth sport. Who knows? Like the goal shifted to almost like, can I be a CFL quarterback coach? Right? Can I be an OC? Can I do something like that? Um, but then, it was weird. Like, I don't know when it clicked, but it's just like, I realized that no one had ever really taught me how to throw a football. Right. My dad did his best growing up. The first real interaction with like a quarterback coach, Coach Ron at Vanier, living legend.
Yeah.
He's still there. He's an OG. He's the guy. So he started showing me a little bit of stuff back in the day. But again, your team
Mm,
coach doesn't have that much time to work
yeah.
mechanics with you. Like that's not their job. And this is what I tell guys all the time. Your coach for your team, even if it's a quarterback coach, his job is to make sure that you know your plays, you know the play concept, you know where to put your eyes, you understand the footwork, you know how to call the play, you know how to get the ball out of your hand quick. They're not there to teach you
Mm,
how to throw the football. That's not their job, and it shouldn't be. Your job as a quarterback is to learn how to do those things on your own, so that when you get there, you're the guy who's lined up ready to take the spot.
Yeah.
So no one had really taught me how to throw a football. Even when I went down south, no one taught me how to throw a football. It was really just jump into the system. You'll try to learn it in the summers. Like there wasn't a lot of extra work. We were throwing on our own. So when I finished, I was like, man, like no one ever taught me how to throw a football. And I was looking around Canada and I was like, no one is teaching anybody how to throw football. So I spent 2 years after my master's just, studying mechanics, watching the best
Wow.
coaches, learning from the best coaches, reaching out, networking with dudes that I still talk to this day, who were doing it on a private scale in the United States.
Mm,
Became friends with a lot of really, notorious quarterback coaches who, I still bounce ideas off today, and just started
mm,
figuring out the mechanics, figuring out my own terminology, how to teach it. Um, then I moved to Ottawa for 2 years. Had my first group of maybe like 5, 6 quarterbacks. Like Christian Veyer was part of that group, who's at Pitt now. There's Ryan LeCandro, who's just finished at Queens, and Gigi's. There's a lot of guys from that cohort who are still playing today.
yeah.
Started there, and then 2 years after that, decided to move back to Montreal. When I got back to
Mm,
Montreal, it's kind of when it all blew up. I started coaching a couple guys, and just word of mouth started spreading and spreading and spreading. And then one year, it was just we had 30 quarterbacks registered for like a winter program, and so I quit my other
wow.
job, and that's when I went full time with it. And so it's been almost 6 years now that it's just full time, train quarterbacks 7 days a week. We got, I don't know, let's say over 300 quarterbacks across Canada. We have quarterbacks all across Europe. Um, you know, we do groups I have a group of quarterbacks in like Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines. We have
Malaysia.
quarterbacks.
Wow.
Yeah, we have quarterbacks in Japan. We have a quarterback in Australia. We have a quarterback Germany, France, uh, all across the United States. Obviously, we have kids as young as 7 years old, and we have guys playing in the CFL. Right. So the goal was I wanted to get better at helping as many quarterbacks as I could learn the game, love the game, and be better than I was, because I didn't know
Mm,
exactly what I was doing. So yeah, just over year by year, just got better and better at the craft. I look at my coaching style from year 1, 2, and 3, and I look at it
mm,
now and I'm like, man, I can't believe I was doing that stuff. Whereas
yeah.
like now, like it keeps evolving. And I think that's what the beauty of a position like this is, that it never stops evolving. So the coaches who do get locked into this certain way of thinking, where everybody knows that coach who was teaching the same stuff 10 years ago that they're teaching now, that's not how the game works. We're getting
Yeah.
so different. The people around us, defensive linemen, are getting faster and bigger. Receivers are getting faster. They're getting out of their cuts quicker.
Mm,
We have to adapt, right? There's only so much
mm,
we can physically do to throw a football faster. So we have to get more biomechanically sound. We have to use our body more efficiently to get the ball out quicker. So every year, the way I train quarterbacks changes, evolves, gets better. And I think that's my responsibility as a coach, and I think that's what our responsibility as coaches is we have to continue to adapt and get better every single year, every single day, because the kids are relying on us to do that. And the guys who don't change and the guys who don't evolve are the ones who get left behind and wonder why kids aren't coming out anymore. Why aren't they training anymore? Oh, let me just focus on my real job then and not do this, because they're not trying to grow the game. They're just staying locked into what they did as a kid. I can tell you right now, I do not train. I don't think there's one thing I train now that I learned as a kid. It just doesn't
wow.
happen. The game is different. So
Wow.
if you're not expanding, learning, networking, reaching out, to give the kids that you coach the best opportunity to succeed, then I mean, what are you doing? So that's definitely my approach to coaching. Um, it's worked so far. It's gotten us to here, and now the goal is to just keep going, keep offering, um,
Yeah.
keep meeting new kids, and yeah, just keep pushing the boundaries of what we can do up here in Canada, and try and make it as close to what they do down south, because that is the pinnacle of
Mm.
quarterbacking, is definitely United States. And I think we're catching up pretty quickly, pretty quickly.
Wow. There's so much. I find there's so much into what you said from a lot of different perspectives. First, just seeing a problem, just business wise, man, because you lived it one way or another, and it kind of hit you, man, that, hey, no one actually showed you seriously how to throw a football and
Yeah,
really
crazy.
spend time with you doing that. So that's one thing. And then kind of just reaching out. I think the humility and leaving the ego at the door to actually ask questions, to actually
Yeah,
reach out, because people out there, man, who want to grow the game, who love the game, they'll gladly share this information with people who also want to grow the game, for
Yeah.
the right reason. So just in your approach and how you did that, that's two things I take away from it. Another thing that I have to give you some props definitely when it comes to that is because there's always this moment for a lot of different businesses or entrepreneurs who have an idea where, yes, your idea solves a problem, definitely, but you're also at a moment where it hasn't been done necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people have to buy into the idea. And
Yep.
there are some people that will not buy into the idea initially, right? It's just normal. There's that resistance phase.
Of
You
course.
talked early about consistency, when you
Yep.
coach quarterbacks. So I'm sure, man, that comes a lot into play. But if you could tell us about just that moment, I'm pretty sure there were some moments that were a bit more difficult. You
For
stay
sure.
consistent and you are where you are today. But let's say if you had any advice, man, for anyone who is at that exact point where they believe in their idea, they know it solves a problem, they know it can help people, but people just don't get it or see it
Yeah.
yet. What is it
Hey,
that they need to do?
it's we hear it all the time, man. Haters are haters. You're gonna have them. It's gonna happen. I
Yeah,
remember when I started, people telling me, "Yo, the market's not here for this kind of stuff. There's not enough quarterbacks. We don't have enough teams. No one's gonna support it." I was like, "All right. I mean, try it anyways." And
yeah,
consistency over time. It started with one quarterback. I remember doing one-on-one sessions. For 8 hours a day, just back to back to back, like getting in. Then you form the groups. Like it takes time to build something that's great. So, at the beginning either people telling me that it couldn't be done or that there was no money in it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll work another job. I love coaching quarterbacks, so I'm going to keep doing this kind of stuff. Um, you know, coaches, I had coaches telling their kids not to come out and train with me because they were getting all they needed from their respective coaches, which they were not. Coaches saying that I didn't know what I was talking about, this, that, like it's going to happen. But eventually, if you're good at something, it's going to work. Like, and that's that
mm,
consistency aspect. If you're good at something and you're passionate about it and you want to get better at it and you're doing the things on your end to make sure that you're offering the best service, the best quality of life to the kids that are trusting you, right? The kids that for the last 10 years have been training with me, they trust me to give them something new every time. I think that's what separates you. So, I don't know if there was ever like an aha moment. It's been progressively, it's just always another step and another step and another step. And every time someone says, "Oh, you can't do this. Oh, well, you can't run like a week long camp for quarterbacks. Who's going to do that?" Okay, well, we did it. You can't run a QB only showcase. Well, we did it. Right. Like you got to try. And there's some things that, failed at. There's some things that I did try and, didn't really work. And it's okay. On to the next idea. But it's always giving something new to these kids. And again, for me, it's like it's that quarterback mindset. You love to prove the haters wrong. You love when people tell you you can't do something, and then you go out
yeah,
and do it way better, and then you gotta watch you do it. So there's something in that kind of that fuels it a little bit too. And I mean, even to this day, there's people who still hate on it. There's still people who
mm,
think there's better ways of doing it, or like how he does it. There's always going to be those people, but
yeah,
eventually over time, like you can't hate on success. So you got to encourage it, you got to embrace it, and you got to keep pushing past it. And eventually down the line, man, people start to change their minds, and all of a sudden they want to be your friends. And that's the
mm,
life of a quarterback, man. The ups and downs, they come with it. So
yeah,
there was never a big aha moment, but it was kind of like every year I was trying to do something new and it would
mm,
work. And then okay, so that works. Now next year I'm going to keep that and I'm going to do something else that's new. Oh, it
mm,
worked. Okay, let me do something else new. And maybe it didn't work. So I tried something else and that worked. So it was just kind of always leveling up and giving the kids something better, something new. And yeah, that's kind of the mindset that's been since day one.
really cool, man. I think it's Shannon Sharp that said recently, because as I listen to you talk, all I can do is smile. Thinking of quarterbacks, because he says, man, they're the guys with like probably the biggest ego in the room. They just know what to say. They know the correct thing
Yeah.
to say, so it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like it. But man, don't get it twisted, man. They're out here to compete, and
Yeah.
man, they want to win at everything, right? So,
Yeah.
and I definitely see that spirit, which is a really cool thing, man. I keep that, man. I love seeing that, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, when I see what you do, man, and I'm talking to you, I'm listening to you, man. I see that it's much bigger than football, one way or another. It definitely is, man. And it leads me to my next question. When it comes to legacy, you obviously want to grow the game. You want to have an impact on people. You've played this game, you're done playing it, right? So all you can do, man, is share it, is help people maybe go a little bit further than you did and go as far as they
Exactly.
can. So I'm curious to know, man, ultimately, because you said it, man, there are things happening in Canada right now that are pretty cool, man, and getting closer and closer to maybe some of the quality that you see in the US in terms of teaching the
Yeah.
game of football, the position at quarterback. So, what type of legacy would you like to leave, man, when it comes to
Yeah.
these young people coming up in this game?
I mean, it's weird, and I mean, I don't know. Some people might take it differently or not fully understand, but to a certain extent, I don't really like football. I like
Mm, me too.
quarterbacks. I like the
Me too.
development of quarterbacks. I love seeing kids work hard to do something that they might love football. They might
Yeah.
absolutely love football, and that's what you need to be successful. For me, I have more of a passion towards the development of the position of quarterback than I do for the game of football, right? The politics, the injuries, the emotional roller coaster, especially that this position brings, like it ain't easy and it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a fan of the QB development part of the sport
Mm,
because the kids who do want to train want to get better and they want to just become experts at what they do. And a lot of those guys love football. And that's why they're going to be very, very successful and do bigger things than I did and be better than a lot of the other kids that they're playing against because they love the sport and they love the development part of it too. So for me, in terms of legacy, like me, it's the kids. I tell them all the time, like my success depends on your success, right? So I need to make sure that I'm on my A game, even though I'm in the shadows, I'm in the sideline, like I'm on, like nobody sees me, people see you,
mm,
but you are a direct connection to my success. So if you're
mm,
out there killing it, I'm going to be good, and more kids are going to want to train with me, more kids are going to want to come out, more coaches are going to want to reach out and recruit our guys because you are doing the right things on the field. So my main goal is more about making sure these kids are getting the right information, that are confident in what they're doing, so that whenever they're asked a question, they're in an interview or they're being recruited or scouted, they know the answers to all the questions because they're prepared. And I feel like that's my job and what I love doing with these guys. Where when our guys step on the field and if they're at a camp or something, like I know our guys are going to ball out because they know exactly
mm,
what they're doing. They're not going in there blind. So I think our legacy is really just, I mean, I never want to stop, right? Like I could win the lottery tomorrow for $100 billion. Like I'm still going to coach quarterbacks every day, So like the legacy
yeah.
is more about letting these kids kind of develop into these men and do really good things. Um,
Mm,
and on that note, we have a lot of quarterbacks. Not everybody makes it. So we have quarterbacks that have now retired or have quit football,
yeah.
that are doing really good things, schooling, some guys that say, you know what, I can't handle football because I'm trying to be a scientist. I'm trying
Mm,
to do aerospace engineering. Like all these guys who are doing this crazy stuff where they take some of the stuff we've done as quarterbacks and the mindset that goes behind it, and they've applied it into what they do in school, the dedication, the consistency, right? That consistency of always being good, always being responsible for what you got to do. And that's the cool part. And that's the shit
wow.
I love about this position, is that there's so much more into it than football. They like
Mm,
to be 15 years old, dedicating 2 days of your week to come out and train, throwing footballs, analyzing your movement, taking a metro, walking in the snow, like skipping the party, like it's high school,
yeah.
man. There's girls every, like for these kids to want to come and do this stuff with us as opposed to that kind of stuff, it's amazing. So how can I not be trying to better myself to be better for them? Right. So that's
Mm,
kind of what we've built so far. And that's why like we never, like it never stops. And that's why every year we're going to get better. It's going to get bigger. We're going to learn more so that the kids just get the best of everything. So I
wow.
think that's where the legacy is trying to go. And the more and more kids keep training, the more and more guys we're going to see at the pro level. The more and more kids that are going to be able to come out and do camps for other kids, and camps
Mm,
all across the world where it might be separate from QB movement, but they're going to pass on, you know, the ideas and the way that we trained to the kids that they're coaching, or maybe their sons and daughters, or even if it's a different sport. Like I don't know, I think that's the legacy. Like I said, I could, like, who knows where it's going to go, but that's the mindset towards it.
nice. It's part of the journey, man. Looking to forward to see where the journey leads. And I love that you said what you said, because I've been saying this for years, that I don't love football. It's a weird thing. A lot of people don't understand, but by hearing you say that, man, I know you get it and you're in the same position. And I find a lot of coaches love football.
Yeah,
It's why they do what they do.
yeah,
For you, for me, it's a little bit different. Where, like you said, I love excellence, man. I love people being the best version of themselves. I love people, man, maximizing their potential, whatever that is, striving for something. And football just kind of gives a lot of the tools and the environment, and it's just a tool that people are interested in that I can use to kind of teach that. Same thing for you, right?
yeah,
So I actually have one more question for you, and it just comes back to all these kids, man, that you talked about. Okay, that you talked about, and you said it. Not everyone's gonna make it, right? Not everyone's gonna make it. But I also have this saying. Actually, it came from Mehdi Abdesman. Okay, Mehdi Abdesman. He said, "Everyone can turn pro." And when he was saying that, I wonder what he was saying. But he said, "No, man. Whether it's in football or in something else in life, if you're a father, man, you want to be the best father you can be. I hope so,
yeah,
right? You can turn pro at something if that's your mindset, that you keep.
for sure.
So I want to celebrate these kids for a second, okay? All these kids, man, within your program. If you could talk to us about them, what impresses you the most about them? You said it. Some of them, man, they walk through the snow, they show up, man. If you could tell us, man, what makes them who they are, QB movement athletes. Who are these
Yeah.
kids, man? And yeah,
Well, I mean, it starts, man, the little guys, man. We got 7-year-old kids who, are putting down the game controller to come out and train and learn, and seeing them watch so intently and be so focused on small detail things that, I train a 7-year-old the same way I train our CFL guys. Like nothing changes, right? If they can master the movement. So to see young kids like that be so locked in to small detail stuff, and where like a parent will come up and be like, man, he has such a hard time focusing at school. He's having trouble with his homework, blah blah. Now all of a sudden he's training here and he's a different kid, like, because
wow,
he's passionate about something. So it opens up doors. So the little kids, that's the best part, is just seeing them like light up and learn something, and then go home and like tell their parents about it or talk about it in the car, and then getting those messages from the parents being like, man, like he's so excited, like he can't wait to come back. And I'm like, cool, that's great. Seeing it from, when I started this, we had one flag football girl. We had a girl who
mm,
wanted to throw footballs. Now we got over 20 girls who are throwing footballs,
wow,
right? Like the female community of trying to get better, where it's not just girls who can throw a football. These girls want to be quarterbacks, right? So seeing
mm,
how serious some of these girls take a sport that for so long they've been kind of neglected and pushed to the side on, now it's
yeah,
like they've been given a platform to showcase. Like now these girls are grinding. And like I'm telling you now, we got some girls who outthrow the boys like no problem. So the
wow,
ability for these girls to lock into and not think that, they're second place or different from the boys. Like these girls lock in. So that's amazing. Seeing obviously the kids who develop, like like an Arnaud Desjardins, Joe Senecal, Jackson Ugalis. These are kids that I met when they're 13 years old, and seeing them
wow,
stay consistent to the grind and deal with the ups and downs, right? Transferring schools like I did, dealing with injuries like I did, and these kids keep bouncing back and they keep working. Like that's amazing to see too. Getting a guy, meeting a guy like Vernon Adams, who'd been a 8-year professional quarterback, who was so reluctant to want to kind of like change because he was so hesitant because he was
mm,
getting so many ideas, to like commit and lock in and say, you know what, I do want to get better. And for a guy like that, of that pedigree and that talent, to say, you know what, I want to open up my brain to learn and accept new ideas,
mm,
is amazing, right? And that's
yeah,
that's that's kudos to a guy like him, who even at a pro level you can always learn something, right? So and fortunate for him, he just had one of his best years ever playing at BC, and now he's going to have another amazing year. So like seeing how all the different ages, no matter, regardless of experience, regardless of the things that they've been through, being able to just kind of open up and accept new ideas and new ways of throwing, and then use that to build success. Man, that's how can you not just love that? Like it's so fun. And a lot of people don't see that from the sidelines. They don't see that process. They don't
mm,
see these guys like putting in the work, in the shadows. And like we tell it all the time, like when you're on the field and there's nobody in the stands and you're training, well, it's because you're preparing for that moment where those stands are going to be full, right? So if you're not putting in the work now, how are you going to learn later? So from our youngest kids to our ladies to guys in high school, CJEP, they're all grinding at the same level. and it's
Mhm.
so beautiful to watch because they're all getting better collectively. And I think that's how we've built like a little community. um and I couldn't be more proud of the kids that we work with. It's an absolute blessing every day. So I've made some really really good friendships, and all these kids are like my little brothers and sisters now. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
That's awesome, man. Especially when you're talking about the girls. Uh, I don't know if you stop to actually think about it. Like as I was listening to you, man, all I can think of is your daughter. One way or another, being around the game and seeing these girls, man, taking it seriously and carving, trailblazing, basically their own space. Because we're in a
Yep.
special moment right now,
Yep.
where football, flag football, wasn't associated with girls at all,
Yeah.
at all. And now we're seeing that, man. So I think it's cool that one way or another, man, you're playing a part in that movement, and she gets to be around it without even realizing
Yep.
what everything means, man. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
really cool.
no, she's in good hands. I'm gonna make sure, and that's our jobs as fathers is give our kids every opportunity to succeed. So the time and effort that I put in these kids that are here, we can better bet your ass I'm gonna double that for her. Make sure that she has every opportunity to succeed because in reality, she's my legacy, right? So at the end of the day, she's my legacy, and she's going to be what pushes everything forward for our name. So no, she's a beautiful, smart little girl. So I can't wait to see what she grows into. But at least we know she's going to have some backup from some pretty big dudes around if she ever gets into trouble. So
Really
that's
cool,
one good
man.
side of it.
All right, man. So my
Yeah,
only question left for you is obviously, man, you said it before. You go 7 days a week. Right now, you're in that office
yeah.
working really hard. Is there anything specific coming up in the near future around QB movement that people should know about?
Well, I mean, it never stops. One thing, because we are pretty like quiet, we're close knit. Some kids message me, they're like they're nervous to reach out. Like don't be nervous. I'm any quarterback. I don't care how old you are, what your experience is, backup star, whatever. If you want to work, we will find a way for you to work. We do online training with guys all around the world every single day. We do group sessions every single week. That never stops. We have a 5-day March break camp that's coming up in March. We have a showcase that's coming in the spring for high school guys to get recruited. There's always stuff going on. But the
Yeah.
biggest thing, and my biggest encouragement to young quarterbacks out there is, whether it's with me, whether with someone else, just message coaches, man. Just talk to guys. A lot of
Wow.
coaches, you can even send them a clip of you throwing, and they'll give you a free evaluation. They'll just talk to you, right? A lot of these guys are pretty level headed. And if one doesn't answer, who cares? Talk to another one. So whether it's
Yeah.
me, you know Coach Casey, who's our assistant coach who helps out, you can reach out to any of us, and we'll help you in any way you can, because like I said, it's about growing the game. So I'd rather have a lot of quarterbacks learning than a few special ones that I'm trying to just focus all my time into. So it's about just giving every kid the same opportunity. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything.
Really cool, Mouse. Well, this is it for today, man. This is what I got. It's been a pleasure, man. Not only obviously I know about your story. I've looked at it from afar. I've been a
Yep.
rival. I've been a friend. I've been a little bit older and kind of saw you in your development and
Yep.
got closer. But through it all, I find, man, I really enjoyed having this conversation because I thought I knew what QB movement was about, and I knew about it in its essence, but it's a lot more than I even thought it was. And that's
Appreciate
a
that.
testament to you. And I say this honestly, man. Anything that transcends the game fires me up, and what you got going on definitely transcends the game. And I find, man, as coaches, that's our role, man. That's why we're here, man. So you're a coach through and through, and that's probably the biggest honor, man. I can give you, man. So I love what you're about. I love what you do, and I love what you do for this game, and especially for these kids, man. So thanks for sharing that with us today, man.
I appreciate you, Ray. And I mean, people know you. Everybody knows Ray. Ray's the guy, man. Ray's the leadership guy. He knows to talk about. And I always bring up the story anytime I can, where I remember sitting on a bus with you and talking about, this is way before QB movement ever started. And you were
Mm,
just telling me about all the things you wanted to do. And those always came back to the idea of like mindset and leadership and guiding,
mm,
kids along the right path. And,
mm.
every step of the way you've done that. So I have the utmost respect for you. And now we just gotta keep growing, keep doing what we gotta do. And, hey, success is on the horizon, man.
Exactly, exactly. So thank you guys, man, for watching this episode of Football Inc. Myles Gibbon. Make sure to go check him out. Make sure to go check the QB movement. And again, man, we're talking about business. We're talking about football, but again, we're talking about much, much more. So, guys, you only have one job, really, is just to hit that subscribe button. If you've been inspired, if you learned anything, make sure to share it with somebody. We're trying to do some good within this game and beyond, and celebrate, man, the good things that are happening in football. So until next time, thanks for your time today, guys. Take care.